Hello, all you skibbies. This is Great Answer coming to you from the rope bondage capital of the world, Madison, Wisconsin. And those of you who are saying, wait a minute, Gray, you're not doing the rope cast anymore. It's Great Answers podcast on kink, sex, and culture. How can you still call it the rope bondage capital of the world? Well, that's simple. I didn't make it the rope bondage capital of the world. Do you really think I have that kind of power? More to the point, do you think that if I could make Google say that Madison, Wisconsin was the rope bondage capital of the world, that I would be wasting my time talking about this stuff? I would be out there, doing things like fixing elections and, taking over the world. But no, instead, I'm here with you to talk about kink and sex and culture in ways that hopefully would scandalize the people who if they knew what you were listening to. Well, okay, I confess that there are some of you who are out there working in places that it would not scandalize them at all, but I'm glad to have you here as well. This podcast, like most of my podcasts, is brought to you by three separate sponsors / patrons. And those three are, first of all, Twisted Monk Rope. He makes beautiful hand-dyed, and let me tell you, the process by which this stuff is hand-dyed is amazing. He posted a little short video, which I was surprised he did, because I have seen the rope-making machine. I have seen the gears and the contraptions and the things that go on in there. And I remember I almost had to sign away my first child in order to promise that I would not give away what he called lovingly the everlasting gobstopper machine. And yet he still posted a picture of it on Twitter, which was it running rope through flames. It looks like the rope would burn up, but actually that's part of the process that makes his rope very, very, very nice to use and to fondle. And yeah, getting a little lost there in my thoughts of monk rope. Anyway, he also sponsors the podcast, and we really appreciate that. So you should go to twistedmonk.com and get some of his rope. We're also sponsored, a relatively new sponsor, japanesebound.com. My friend Zetsu, he works with various Japanese publishers and videographers and rope artists to get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else, and you can download it directly to your computer, telephone, whatever, telephone, cell phone, mobile device, and that way you can watch. Now, when I say watch, I mean that there are instructional videos, certainly there. There are also porn. There's some really hot fucking sexy stuff there as well. I highly recommend you go to japanesebound.com and take a look at what they do. A lot of the videos have like still images, galleries of still images. And, not that I would suggest that you go and look at the gallery of still images without actually buying a video. But if all you can afford is your attention, then you should go there and give it to them. And then you should write them and say, hey, we really appreciate that you sponsor Great Answers podcast. Because that way they know that you're hearing it from me, which I'd really like you to do. You can also always go to greatanswer.libsyn.com. It's Libsyn. That's the official place where the podcast is held, and there's links to both of those sites there. There's also a link to my Patreon page, and that's the third place which helps support this podcast. Patreon.com/greatanswer. Now, it's not Great Answer, it's Gray Dancer, GRAYDANCER. And patrons, we really, really appreciate the patience and the support that you've been giving. It's enabling us to make some changes. Like you may notice that this podcast right now is being broadcast only a week after the last one. And that's going to be our goal, is to have weekly podcasts every single Monday coming out. So you have a podcast. I don't expect you to listen to it on Monday, but you will have a podcast full of smut and kink and hot and sexy thoughts that you can pull out during the week that you might need to help keep you going. We're going to remind you about the podcast on Wednesdays, just to kind of say, hey, don't forget about this. I've gotten great responses from people from the podcast with Honey Bear. Inspired a lot of interesting conversations, and I really appreciated the way people I appreciated the way you let me know and let Honey Bear know that you appreciated the time we took to share that with you. And that is fantastic. So yeah, things are happy in Great Answer Podcast land. And today we don't actually have a guest. Today I actually just am going to talk a little bit about something near and dear to my heart. And it's not directly rope related, although it certainly could be. And what we're going to talk about is protocols. You may or may not know that I'm in a 24/7 what's known as a total power exchange relationship. Now, that sometimes makes people think, oh, so you decide what she eats, you decide what or she could decide what I do, depending on what side. I shall say I am on the top side, she is on the bottom side. Naya is my serva, and I'll talk about why we call her that in a moment. Anyway, so she is, we are in what's called a total power exchange. Now, we did not sit down and negotiate a contract. We did not do that kind of thing. Basically, what our contract comes down to is that for all intents and purposes, she has given up, surrendered all but the last no. And what that represents is that the no is that she can always decide she doesn't want to be in the relationship. Now, does this mean that I make all of her decisions for her? And no, it does not mean that. It means that I have the final word if I choose to. It means that, if I am an intelligent person, I look at the fact that she is an intelligent, strong, competent woman, and I say, okay, I'm going to listen to her advice, and I then take it into consideration. Now, if I then am idiotic enough that I fail to heed her advice or pay attention to the things she's trying to tell me, then she goes along with that willingly. It's similar to the chain of command in a military situation. It's similar to the way that a lot of marriages have been throughout history, or different other types of family units. The difference is we're going into this with our eyes wide open. We are both choosing this, not because we think it is the ultimate way and it's the way that things should be or anything like that. It's because this is what works for us. We both think of ourselves as feminists, as this being a choice of, us both making the choice to say, fuck the patriarchy. We aren't doing this because it's the way we think it should be. We're doing it in the way that we want to do it, that nourishes us. And part of the way it nourishes us is through protocols. Okay, now protocols, the word protocol just means the way that you do something. And here's the weird part. There are some people, like say you got me and Melina Williams and Sinclair Sexsmith together, and you said, hey, you guys, talk about protocols. We would get into the theory of protocols. We would be like the prototypical Star Trek geek given 3 books full of blueprints of various Star Trek ships and asked to determine what is the best Star Trek ship. I mean, we would just be going over and comparing notes and making up, ideas and talking about, oh, but did you read this reference in this place? And some people are like that. Okay, now this is not going to be a podcast quite that in depth. Okay, that actually Sinclair does some great podcasts, and frankly, Melina Williams has some great stuff on kinkacademy.com, which you could totally look at for that. I love discussing it. I certainly love protocols. I think of protocols really as it's like the framework within which we build our relationship. If I think of a house. I think of the framing of a house. Okay, the foundation is the two people themselves. The framing is kind of what you get to hang stuff on. And the reason I think of it as that is because when things are rough and a wall's coming down or the roof's falling in, if that framework is strong, you can rebuild. You can patch things up. You can do stuff. If the framework is not strong, you're going to have a little more work to do before you have a livable house. At that point, the metaphor kind of falls down. So what are we talking about? The 2 questions that I think you need to ask when you're thinking of a protocol for your relationship. And why should you think about it? Why don't you just go and get the Leatherman Handbook? Why don't you just watch 50 Shades of Grey or read the book? Or why don't you just, adopt the Gorian lifestyle, which has certainly been written about quite a bit? Why don't you just adopt all those things? Well, the reason why is because every single one of those things that came out of there started somewhere. And I'm telling you that the way it started is exactly through the process that I am describing here. Now, it is slightly possible that these protocols that other people came up with might actually work for you. It might actually be the kind of thing that turns you on, that makes your relationship wonderful, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's also entirely possible that you'll be going through the motions and you'll be like, why the hell am I having her put my spoon on my plate next to my tea when I don't actually have anything in my tea? And if the answer is, well, that's because that's the way the protocol is, well, that's kind of a dumb answer. That's not the way it should be. So when you're thinking about what kind of protocols you're going to have, I think you need to start out with two questions. The first question is, what do you want? And the second question is, what are you prepared to do? To quote Sean Connery from The Untouchables. Those are the two questions you have to keep in your mind for anything, okay? What do you want? I want tea. What are you prepared to do for that tea? Are you prepared to wait while your partner creates it or your partner makes it? Are you prepared to wait while they bring it over? Are you prepared to pay attention to the way they bring it over? Because if you're not going to pay attention to it, there's no use in having that protocol. Or do you not want tea? So you don't actually want to have somebody serving you tea. Hey, look, we're back in the old level of consent and things like that. Now, of course, those are both from the top's perspective. From the bottom's perspective, the service provider's perspective, it's a question of what do you want still, because it's what do you want is in how are you being fulfilled as a submissive? What is it about that fulfills you? And it's an important question to ask, because if you really, really hate that whole Victorian tea service kind of idea, but your top really gets off on it, well, then what you may have to do is you may have to be like, well, I don't want to do the tea service, but I want to see my service receivers' eyes light up when I bring in the tea for them in a proper way. So therefore, I am prepared to learn how to do the tea service and wear the butler's outfit and come in and say, here is your tea, madam. But here's the thing, all of these things, the reason why both sides have to, it's not just a matter of going, well, what does my top want? Or, what is my bottom prepared to do for me? Here's the thing, the whole reason you have protocols is to reinforce the relationship. It's to create that framework that holds it through. Now, I have decided arbitrarily that there are 4 things that it is useful, that protocols are useful to do. Okay? Here's the 4 things. The quick and dirty way is, the first thing is hierarchy in relationship. The second one is connection, the connection between the people in the relationship. The third one is the hot. And I'm hoping when I say hot, you can hear the HAWT all caps letter. This isn't just the hot, it's the hot. Okay, it's the hotness of a relationship. And the fourth thing is, it should in some way do quality of life, improve the quality of life. Now, it may do all of these things. It may do a couple of these things. It may only do one of these things. But if it doesn't do any of these things, then why the fuck are you going out of your way to do it? I mean, I've talked before about how kink is basically accessorized sex. And as anybody knows who has tried to do something complicated with a lot of accessories, the more accessories you add, the more complicated things get, the harder it is to do things. So if you don't have to have these protocols, why, and they're not adding anything to your life, why would you have them? The worst answer to that is because that's the way it's done. Okay, there are handbooks, there are guidebooks to how this is done. They are all, I won't say bullshit, because like I said, you get me reading the Leatherman's Handbook, I'm like loving it, I'm eating it up. This is great stuff. But I also recognize this is what worked for these people at this time, not necessarily what works for everything else. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about each of these 4 things. First of all, what kind of protocols can reinforce the hierarchy? One way you can do this is the physical position of someone. Okay, for example, Naya always knows exactly where she belongs in terms of when we're walking along, and that is slightly behind me and to my right. sometimes coming up to take my arm. Okay, and then she just knows that's where there's never any question of, where should I walk to? She knows exactly where to be. Okay. Likewise, here at the Dance of Smoke and Ash, which is our home, we have a cushion on the floor, a very big, soft cushion. And she likes to sit down there while I sit on the couch. And we have guests over. She'll sit there and the guests will sit on the couch and things like that. She likes having a position there to reinforce the fact that she is here to be of service. You also have various postures that can do that. There's a bedtime protocol that we have where, and I'll talk about this. It used to be that the bedtime protocol was that I would get into bed and I would be reading or whatever and waiting for her to get ready for bed. And when she was ready to come to bed, she would come and she would kneel next to the bed and just wait for me to acknowledge her. We'd have a little bit of a check-in on how the day went, maybe, and then I would invite her to come to bed. It's just a little ritual that reinforces that. Now, here's the change. She had a bout, or is still recovering from a bout of bursitis in her knee. And we changed that protocol so that instead of kneeling down, she will stand in a, basically it's the at ease posture from the military, which I have to tell you, boy, a naked serva standing there next to your bed in that position is quite distracting, which shows it also reinforces the hot. You notice that. Anyway, but that is a part of it, the way that posture can work, and both a measure of respect and ornamental type decoration. Verbal calls and responses. Now, that's just a matter of things saying yes, sir, no, sir. And this is where I'll talk a little bit about the idea of the words we use, which is dominus and serva. Because we study a little bit of Latin. When she's referring to me directly, she says yes, domine, no, domine, and I refer to her as serva. Serva is the Roman feminine form of slave, and dominus is the Roman masculine form of master. Now, you might say, well, why don't you just use master and slave? Well, here's the thing. The way that she and I use those terms, the relationship that we have, the total power exchange, really bears no realistic analogy to the master-slave relationship as it was either in the United States or as it was even in Rome, for that matter. However, because there is a lot of direct history, and it has not been that many years since slavery was finally abolished, and even then there were all kinds of bad things going on. When she and I are traveling around, for her to call me master and me to call her slave is, we feel, disrespectful and inconsiderate. We feel like that might be basically the equivalent of involving someone non-consensually in our scenes. Okay? Whereas the Roman Empire, for all its faults, is pretty far away in people's memories. In fact, we fetishize the TV series like Rome and Spartacus and the movie Gladiator and things like that. And so we're like, if we're going to sort of fetishize an idealized version of another culture, let's do one that's a dead culture and that doesn't have such weighted philosophical and socio-political problems with it. Now, if you want to use master and slave, I am not saying you should not. I'm talking about what worked, again, for us. And so we use dominus and serva. And if you're rolling your eyes and saying, oh my God, who the fuck does this guy think he is calling himself dominus? I totally get it. I was completely exactly that same way. I would hear people call themselves dominus, and I would be the person rolling their eyes saying, why don't you just call yourself master, goddammit? Hey, times change. I'm not going to hold that against you. But the point is to come up with some verbal calls and response in your protocol that work for you. And one little kind of trick, by the way, is that if you're in a public place and you aren't able to say things like sir or slut or serva or whatever you want to call the other person, you can come up with certain, how do we put it, code words. For example, when Naya is serving me in public, she will call me my love. She'll say, yes, my love. And when she says that, I know in my head, the little dominant translator machine goes, she's saying domine. Okay, so you can have these little codes that people will kind of think, oh, that's so sweet. But in reality, I'm saying, yes, my sweet darling. And she knows what I'm saying is, yes, my cum guzzling cock slut. And, everybody's happy then. So the second thing that a protocol should reinforce is the connection between people. And I think here's the thing. Each of these 4 things is going to get easier to explain as we go along because they kind of reinforce each other. Okay. It reinforces the connection. I've just described how the words, the way you do things, can reinforce it verbally. Rituals also do this, okay? And one of my favorite examples of this was from a guy named Whipmaster Bob, who was, he's from the Kansas City area, and he had a phrase that he would tell his slave, and he'd say, I want you to go have a life so I can interrupt it. Okay, and that's, to me, that is part of the connection. That's part of the whole idea of total power exchange. It's not that I want Naya to be waiting on me hand and foot every given moment, just standing there waiting for me to find some use for her. No, I want her to be off doing things. I want her to be having a full and rich life. I want her to share that with me. I want to be able to share my life with her. And part of the power exchange is that if I decide I'm going to interrupt what she does, even if it's annoying, that's part of the hotness of it, okay? Another way to reinforce connection is with talismans. Now, talismans have various kinds of protocols attached. We used to have a chain link collar made by Pendragon Chainmail. Really love that collar a lot. And we would have a little ritual before we get on a plane where I would unlock it and put it in there. Now we are using one of those eternity collar style type things, so it doesn't actually have to come off anymore. And to be honest, we miss that little ritual, that little talisman, that type of thing. And when I say talisman, it doesn't have to be something big, okay? I can tell you that one of the rituals that we have that includes with talismans and rituals is with my rope, okay? When I go off and am out, either whether I'm playing with Naya or playing with a different play partner, I usually, at whatever point before I'm about to come home, I don't coil up my rope. I just shove it all in my monk sack. I love my monk sack. And I just bring it home to her. And part of her ritual, which another part of the ritual is unpacking my things. And I did set a clear deadline of I want my stuff unpacked within 24 hours of me getting home. Is her taking out my rope and coiling it in the way that she knows I like it. And that makes her feel more connected to my travels, knowing that I'm saving my rope to be coiled by her. So there's 2 kinds of talismans. There's like the ones that are required, like I do need my rope coiled, so that's required. And there's the ones that are desired, the things you want. To some extent, my tattoo that I got, well, it's not part of a power exchange. My tattoo is a talisman of I'm talking about my labyrinth tattoo, I should add, is a talisman of the place where Naya and I did our collaring ceremony. So it was not required to have that, but it was desired by me to have that there. And it even has the gentle outline of a blue butterfly kind of subtly imprinted in that because Liquid Jade, who did the tattooing, is really talented, and that has more representation. So those little talismans kind of reinforce the protocols and reinforce the connection. So let's talk about the fun stuff, the hotness. Okay, and this is where I happen to channel Midori, who, if you haven't taken her classes on protocols, my God, Oh, you will learn so much in that hour and a half, 2 hours. You will go away with an entirely new perspective. One of the things she talks about is cookies. Talks about Dom cookies, and this is part of the whole. Like for me personally, total power exchange, but that does not mean total control. It certainly doesn't mean micromanaging. Okay, I do not decide that I'm going to tell Naya exactly how many peas she can eat and whether or not she's allowed to put the left shoe on first or the right shoe on first. I don't get off on that. Okay, that's not something that, so I need to figure out what does get me off. And the things that do get me off are things like having her wait at the bedside, having her happily present me with my coffee in the morning, having her have multiple orgasms because I have taken her body and done things with it. That's the kind of control that gives me cookies. She also needs to figure out what kind of things give her cookies, because saying that you are into total power exchange and somebody else says, hey, I'm into that too. That's like two people saying, hey, are you Christian? Yeah, I'm Christian. Or, hey, are you poly? Yeah, I'm poly. Well, therefore, we must be totally in agreement on everything. Okay, no, that is not true. Another thing to think about is, not only what level of control, but also how much effort are you willing to put into it? Okay, it does not get me off to decide what Naya is going to wear every single day. But occasionally, I do enjoy that. Occasionally, I like striking terror into her heart because she will say, hey, is there anything you'd like me to wear to this event or this occasion? And I'll say, yes, I would like you to wear something I will like. And if you don't wear something I like, you'll be punished for it later. Haha. And by punished, I mean punishment in that particular sense of the term. So you can definitely decide that you're going to sort of pass the buck off to the other person. But here's the thing. Only pay attention to the things that you really want to pay attention to, that really feed the relationship. Now, it is possible that something that you don't want to pay attention to is something that the dominant need or the other partner wants you to pay attention to. Okay, and in that case, you have to make a decision of how much effort am I willing to put into this? Because it's definitely possible to build habits. We can have a whole other podcast about how to build kinky habits. You can do it. It's just a matter of putting in the effort. And if I can't find anything directly that is fulfilling me from doing this, can the fact that my partner likes it be enough to be fulfilling? Okay, I personally don't subscribe to a littles mentality. I don't go for the daddy baby girl kind of thing either. But there's a great satisfaction that I get from seeing Naya coloring in one of her adult coloring books. Now, some people would argue and say, oh, well, if she's doing that and she has a stuffy, she must actually be a little. You know what? You can use whatever label you want. We don't refer to it like that. But while I don't automatically get off on the image of people coloring, I get off on the idea of my serva being content and happy. And that is what feeds me from having her do that. So I might tell her, I think it's time for you to do some of your coloring and sit there with your book and be wearing this or nothing or something like that. Be wearing something that I like or in a position that I like. Here's the other thing, though, this whole reinforcement of the hot. If you think that, and I'm speaking to tops now, if you think that just the presence of your unbearable domliness is enough to make your partner hot and wet and hard and totally, ready to service you in any way, let me tell you, you're right. It's actually been shown that with dominant animals and submissive animals, all it takes for the submissive animal to have that jolt of dopamine is for the dominant animal to just enter the same space. Doesn't have to be threatening, doesn't have to do a damn thing, just their presence is enough. But that being said, there's also a principle of hedonic adaptation. So while the first time they saw you walk in the room, their heart may have gone pitter-pat, after a little while, the heart may not be pitter-patting quite as heavily when you walk in the room. So it helps to pay attention to your style, your bearing, the little things. See what things turn them on. I happen to know that Naya really likes to watch me put on my boots. I know that Naya likes to watch me take off my belt. I know that Naya likes, what else does she like to see me do? I know that Naya likes to watch me present. I know that she enjoys watching me in that space. So when I do it, and we recently at Leather Leadership Conference, I was presenting a class on open spaces, and she was sitting in the back watching me, and I pretty much was sure that by the end of it, she was pretty hot and wet, because just the look on her face as she watched me made me feel appreciated, made me feel like I was doing something that she admired, and that actually turned her on to see. So I don't know. You can ask her if that really was the case. Maybe I was just projecting. Get it? Never mind. Okay. Number 4, the quality of life. That's the last thing that a protocol should improve in some way. It should improve your quality of life. Now, this could be a service, a ritual for everyday tasks. I'm a productivity hobbyist. I like reading books and articles on how to increase your productivity. And one of the common things you'll see people say is the idea of you lay out your clothes the night before, so when you get up in the morning, you don't have to waste decision-making power choosing what you're going to wear. And one way to do that also is to just have all of your outfits look exactly the same. So I could be the ultimate dom and just have black t-shirts and jeans, and that would be it. Never have to make a decision, always look uber domly, right? I'm joking, by the way. I'm not sure why black t-shirts and jeans supposedly imply dominance. I think it's just laziness. Anyway, so one thing that we did was that we said, well, hey, here's a way that I can leverage both the productivity and get it into our DS protocol. So Naya every night will lay out my clothes. And she will tell you, I'm very fussy about the way that my clothes get laid out. You know, it has to be a certain order, because I don't want to have the underwear underneath the pants. So my underwear first and then my pants, that kind of thing. So we have a little valet hanger thing in the closet, and she lays out my clothes, and I get up in the morning and I see what I'm going to wear. And here's the added bonus. Here's the hotness part. This means Naya, gets to be the great service submissive that she is, and she thinks, oh, well, Gray's going to go shooting with his dad today. I'm going to put out khakis and his boots and a comfortable shirt that he can move in. Or, hey, it's date night with Hannah, and so I'm going to put out pants and probably no underwear, or the underwear that Hannah got him, just so he knows. Or she knows I'm going to travel, and she puts out she has this idea. Not only are my clothes laid out for me, but they're also optimized for what my schedule is. And because I've told her she can do this, she also gets to some extent, play dress up domly. As in, she gets to choose what I'm going to wear, put clothes out that she wants to see me in if she's in the mood for it. Okay, that's a little bit of that. And me, I get to wear clothes and I'm wearing them, and I'm like, why did she put out the suspenders today? Well, I guess she wanted to see me in suspenders, and I know that when I'm wearing them, it's making her nice and wet. So that's one thing. The second area of quality of life that I think is important is self-improvement. Okay, now it's important to understand I am not one of those dominants, and if you are, just cover your ears because I'm about to make fun of you a little bit. I'm not one of those dominants who says, I am going to fix my submissive because the power of my will overcome whatever hangups they might have. Okay, because here's the thing, even if you are a trained therapist or something in that, a trained therapist knows that you do not treat your own family members. Okay, now at the same time, while it is not, power exchange is not therapy, it is therapeutic. It can definitely help out. I have a very good relationship with Naya's therapist. He's very aware. He's totally kink aware, and I've talked with him before, and he has on occasion even sort of recommended ways that I can help her with her therapeutic process. It's a case where I can do that. It also helps that I can do things like decide that Naya's masochism extends to listening to me bitch and moan about the fact that I need to eat more greens in my diet. Okay, I've reached that age. I have to pay for past sins, and I have to have things like salads and Brussels sprouts and green beans and things that I really don't go out of my way to eat, but that's what's needed to keep me going. So I'll do that. The other reason that you do these kinds of protocols that improve your quality of life is because there will come a time when you are mad at each other for some reason, or you're just mad at something else, but you're mad, you're angry, okay? And you're really you don't have the niceness in you at the moment. And that's when that protocol where you come over and you put out the clothes to wear and you wake up the next morning like, I'm still mad, but my clothes are out. It's a little less hard to be mad then. Basically, these things, this is where that structure holds against, I'm going to use the metaphor, let's say there's a hurricane, things are really rough. That gives you a structure to hold on to. Okay, so just go over those 4 again. Every protocol should do one or more of these things. Should reinforce the hierarchy of the relationship, should reinforce the connection between the people involved. Notice I not say couple, I said the people involved. Should reinforce the hotness, the hot, and should improve the quality of life in some way. Now, it doesn't have to do all of them. Sometimes you just look at something and you're like, hey, you know what? That stays. That is cool. Okay. If you are looking for places to find out more about how service can look, you can certainly go check out the Submissive Playground with Sinclair Sexsmith. Look up some of the things on Kink Academy. I believe the Pagist also has a lot of great stuff on service. And I believe I heard that Abby Beck's podcast, the Dildorks, that they actually had one on service recently. I haven't listened to it yet, but there's a lot of places you can find information on service. But honestly, the thing to do is to look in popular culture. Look for service relationships in popular culture. They're all over the place, and they're not what you'd think. Person of interest. There's power dynamics in there. There's a little bit of TPE, and there's several different kinds of power exchange in there. The easy targets are things like Downton Abbey, especially the first season when Matthew and his valet are having to learn how to get along with each other. There's some very valuable lessons there because it is, to some extent, the duty of the service receiver to find ways both to create opportunities for service and to learn how to receive it gracefully. Okay? You need to find out what the cookies are that your partner needs to receive. Okay? So those are just some of my thoughts on protocol and stuff like that. I have more. This is all from a class that I teach called Creative Protocols. What you're missing out on is that you don't get to do the game show format that we have when we create some protocols, and that's affectionately known as Cards Against Submissives, with the soon-to-be expansion pack for Switches. And then you're also missing out on some of the examples of everyday routine. Oh, I will mention one more thing. If you're trying to figure out what kind of protocols you have or what you can come up with because you want to add more protocols to your life, here's the thing you do. You look at the things you do every day repeatedly, okay? Making your coffee, making your breakfast, whatever kinds of things, walking the dog, getting the paper, whatever it may be. And it does, I'm speaking to tops and bottoms, could be either one, the things that you do, okay? And the first thing you do is you ask the question, what could I be doing if this was already done? Okay, could I be doing something else? Could I be making my life sexier? Could I be doing, getting this other thing done? For me, it's a big mission-oriented thing. Could I be doing something that will further on my career, my goals, and things like that if this was already done? The second thing is, Who looks better doing this, me or my partner? Sir, I realize that you want me to be the one who is going out and getting the paper every day, but I got to tell you, when you put on that robe and the slippers and you put the pipe in your mouth, you just look so goddamn sexy, like you're some 50s husband kind of thing. It just, I would love to see you go out there and then, bend over and get that. And all I can think about is nibbling on your ass, sir. Can you please just do that? And I promise when you come back in, I will have your coffee ready and waiting, along with, a happy and willing mouth or something along those lines. So what looks better doing this? I mean, if somebody came to me and said that based on me getting the paper, I wouldn't be, oh no, you could get the paper. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to get the paper. I'm going to turn you on so much. You just really, and then I'm going to say, no, you can't, because sadist. But anyway, the third thing to ask, okay, would sharing this task, would having it done, would that reinforce the relationship? Would something as simple as going out and getting the paper, is there a way that can reinforce the relationship? The answer may be yes. You may be surprised. So I will have all four of these things and some examples, the outline, on our show notes page. And I think I may even put it up as a PDF on the Patreon page. And I'll put it in the free section. Actually, that's where I'm going to put all these notes. I'm going to put them in the Patreon page, patreon.com/great answer. And if you want to share them, happy to have you do that. I personally feel like, hey, if you can give this class better than I can, you should. What I'm mainly out there to do is to try and get people doing meaningful protocols and happy protocols. And if they do look exactly like what's described in the Gorian Book 7, The Houseplants of Gore, by all means, use that. If that's what feeds you, you do you. That is awesome. And I hope you'll tell me about it. You can always find me, greatanswer@gmail.com is my email. I'm Great Answer on FetLife. I'm Great Answer on Twitter. That's always with a GRAYDANCER. And again, thank you to my sponsors, twistedmonk.com for hand-dyed fantastic hemp rope, as well as other accessories like candles and stuff like that. And also Japanese Bound, where if you want to learn how to use that rope or use those candles, that is the place to go. And if you have any other comments or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Monday. Happy spring. Hope you had a happy Easter. And I will talk to you again next week, when I'm hoping, if life goes well, I will have an interview with Pat Califia. And some of you are going, oh my God, Pat Califia. And some of you are going, who? Trust me, you'll know it's a big deal. Oh, I guess I should talk a little bit about Ropecraft. If you already know all about Ropecraft, you already got your tickets, you should do that. If you haven't, just bear with me for just a second, because one of the things about Ropecraft is that it happens Memorial Day weekend in Chicago, which, as ShibariCon people will tell you, that's a hard thing to do, because you got to choose between International Mr. Leather and ShibariCon. The thing is that we also just released day passes. Only we decided to release our day passes with a bit of a twist. We already had a little bit of a twist because they were going from party to party. Well, we have decided we're going to have the day passes still go from party to party. So Saturday day pass starts Friday night party to Saturday night party. Saturday day pass is Saturday night party, or Saturday night party through Sunday night party. I meant to say Sunday day pass, I think there. This is easier to do if you're writing it down or looking at it. But basically, the idea is for either one, you get Monday free. Now, Monday's a full day. You have class. You have a rope and space in the morning. We have Muntertown is having a festival. Munternalia will have all kinds of things going on then. Fire sales and rope games and literally a chainsaw rope sculpture going on. So all kinds of stuff we have, and a party on Monday night. You get all that for free with your day pass. Okay, and the price of the day pass is exactly the same as the lowest price we've ever offered for Ropecraft. And that's $139.99. So if you are somebody who can't decide between IML and Ropecraft, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to. You can get one of the day passes and still come out. Go to ropecraft.net to get tickets, and we will hopefully get to see you there. In the meantime, I am Gray Dancer, and we're going to try that tagline again. Kink, sex, and culture, it's all more complicated than black and white, so why don't we just dance in the gray?